With 5, 6s, and 7s, the issues are very, very different. They sometimes call 5, 6s, and 7s head types, and indeed there's a kind of a greater propensity among these styles, people with these styles, to think more. Often they think clearly, but as well they may think imaginatively and be kind of exaggerated in their thinking. But the basic dilemma within the three styles has to do with the projection of one's own will and one's own sense of choice and free will and the ability to say yes and no in a really clean, comfortable sort of way, where all of your choices and all of your rights are your own. There's a feeling that runs through 5, 6s, and 7s and is expressed in different ways that my will is not quite my own. That the world is a place that I am aware of having dangerous elements in it. There are forces outside of me that I feel like I can't quite control and I'm not quite up to. I can't quite stand up to them, and I worry about my ability to handle difficulties or emergencies or even just little social interactions with people, or any kind of situation where the world says, I want. I feel somewhere inside like I can't quite say no, and that my ability to say no is somehow kind of not my own. It's out there on somebody else, in a way. And so people with these styles, instead of having confusion around their feelings, tend to have more confusion around action. And instead of having a kind of tangle in matters of the heart, there's more like a knot in the will. And this is what's happening when somebody is in the trance of the style. The high side of these styles, of course, I'll talk about. But in describing the fix of it, the way you're caught in it, the dilemma of it, it has to do with a confusion in the will. And that confusion basically manifests itself as feeling like the world is in some way non-negotiable. In some way the outside world has demands on me or has the potential for making demands on me that I won't be able to negotiate. It's not a give and take. It's they're right and I'm wrong, or they haven't and I don't. They have the power to decide. And so in anticipation of that, I try to think a lot in order to look for eventualities and kind of anticipate what might happen. And there is, through all of these styles, a kind of living in the future that sometimes happens. 6s will live in the past and the future, and 5s might live in the immediate future, and 7s might live in the long-term future. But there's a kind of future anticipation that I would say has to do with the fact that you don't quite feel like you can say no under certain circumstances, and there are questions of competency within this knot in the will, and so you anticipate things or over-anticipate things as if to compensate. In a similar way, you might be kind of out of touch with your instincts, out of touch with your intuitions, or out of touch with your basic gut reaction to things. And so some of the thinking that goes on and the overthinking that goes on is almost to compensate as well. It's like overusing the capacity to think, overthinking a situation because on some other level your instincts just don't feel available to you somehow. So within being a 5, 6, or a 7, a person may be much more aware of how they feel. It depends on the person, and some 5s cut themselves off. But how you personally feel and getting to that is not really the central area usually that a person winds up having difficulty in, or needs to work on, or is the source of difficulty in their present life. It's more to do with a kind of hesitation and a kind of stuttering of action, a kind of saying yes when you mean no, a kind of, yeah, well, I could do that. Maybe I should do that. There's that Diet Coke there. Maybe I'll just pick that up. Should I pick it up? What will they think if I pick it up? Can I pick it up? Is it close enough? What about this microphone here? I mean, this thing, I'm on a leash here. You know, I'm reined in. I don't know if I can reach that far. You know, and you have this little kind of subconscious dialogue about your competency within this, about your competency to do, to take action. So it's a different issue in a broad way. It's a different confusion in a broad way. And so you might know how you feel. You might be kind of out of touch with your instincts, and you might see your power out there in outside forces. Now, with the 5, the fears are specifically social. There's a feeling very often in the trance of the style that in this circumstance or in that circumstance there are kind of social pitfalls. You know, there are, for instance, if I was a 5 and I walked into the room for the first time and I looked at all of you, I might be instantly aware of your expectations of me. I might immediately feel something radiating from you of wanting something from me. And then when I felt that, I might start to kind of try and back off and withdraw and pull away and keep you out. Because I'm actually sort of hypersensitive to your expectations. I feel like I'm aware of your expectations, and I feel like they're in many ways more important than mine. You have the right and I don't in some way. And so I come into the circumstance, I'm aware of what you want, and then I may start to pretend like I don't know what you want, or I don't even see you, or I'm not even here, or I'm kind of withdrawn, or I'm kind of away and distant, or I'm technical, or I'm reading, or I'm disassociated. But I actually am aware of what you want on this other level. It's like I have a weak boundary on the one hand, and then I compensate for it by making too strong of a boundary. And the metaphor I use in one of the tape sets is about earthworms, and about how one version of why earthworms come out of the ground when it rains is that the cells in their skin are not waterproof, and so if they stay underground and the ground fills up with water the way it does when it rains, then the earthworm is in danger of swelling up and then drowning, essentially. And so the earthworm comes up out of the ground to get away from drowning and to compensate for having no sort of firm boundary in its skin, sort of not having waterproof skin. And so a lot of times if you know 5s, you may know people who seem to be withdrawn, for instance, or seem to be kind of in their own world in a way. But it's more complicated than that. Usually there's this other kind of hypersensitivity to environment and to expectations and to being swarmed or being demanded upon or being generally those things. Some kind of expectation and some kind of need coming from the outside. Someone could have grown up, for instance, around a needy mother or needy parents, people who needed me so badly that I felt I couldn't say no to them because then they would abandon me, and then where would I be?